Hello, everybody.
Hi, hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
So welcome Anselmo, welcome Claudia, welcome Cynthia, welcome Gemma, welcome Kenya, welcome Norma, and welcome Josefina. I'm just going to mark you present before I forget to do it. Come back, Bernardo.
Hi.
Let's begin. So we'll start with our masterclass overview of the speaking test, looking at how the examiners grade the different parts of the speaking test, what tips we can give our learners in preparation for it, and we'll have a Kahoot quiz at the end. And what papers at the of the IELTS exam would you like to review for our final session? That's what we'll do at the end. So, yes, welcome Claudia, welcome Josefina.
Good afternoon.
One of the advantages of the IELTS exam, I would say, is that it does allow for real life communication between the examiner and the candidate. Some Now the rival to IELTS, which of course is like TOEFL, only recently have they actually uh, included a speaking test, a live speaking test. Before they didn't used to have one. Um, so I would say IELTS is has a long and distinguished history of testing people's speaking abilities. Um, Now, during the speaking test, Examiners are looking for different language skills in each part of the speaking test. So part one is your ability to talk about yourself, your likes and dislikes. It's important to be able to answer the question why when discussing what you like or dislike, because the examiner will be asking follow-up questions with often with why to try and get the students, the candidates to extend their speaking. Part two is all about how well you're able to organize and present a short talk. And part three is all about their ability to participate in a two-way discussion on more abstract topics. Now, the examiners have to keep to these set timings for each part of the test. It is, after all, a standardized test. So advise your students that the examiner may have to stop or interrupt them if time runs out in any part of the speaking test. This is perfectly normal. So if they're interrupted by the examiner, they shouldn't worry. Now, if they're doing IELTS for computer or IELTS on paper, it doesn't really make a difference. It's going to be face-to-face most of the time. There might be some rare exceptions where they do what's called VCS, which is video call system IELTS, right? If the candidates are a long way from uh, from an international house center, a largish center, then it may be arranged to do VCS, which is the video call via Zoom, right? But that's not that common. It was got quite common during the pandemic, but they seem to be phasing it out in some areas and in favor of the face-to-face again. So speaking, what can we say about it? How will it be scored? That's important, isn't it? So the way that examiners assess their speaking ability is by matching their performance to the band descriptors. I'm going to put the band descriptors into the chat. Got them right here. So if you look on the masterclass handout here, page 27, you'll see these band descriptors. And it's important for you as exam trainers that you be familiar with these band descriptors, right? So examiners assess their speaking ability by matching their performance to each of these four band descriptors: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy and pronunciation. All right. Now, have these open on your computer because we're going to be doing a little bit of listening to some candidates and giving them some grades. Yeah. I actually find it's quite interesting, this. Now, each of these four counts for 25% of the mark on the speaking test. Fluency and coherence. How far you can maintain a flow of speech without long pauses, hesitation, and false starts. A false start is where you begin to speak and then sort of change your direction because you realize you made a mistake. And the way you use connecting words and signaling words to make the relationship between your ideas clear. Then there's lexical resource. That's the range and accuracy of your vocabulary, whether you can express yourself precisely without repeating the same words and using the correct style. Grammatical range and accuracy. That's the range and complexity of your grammar and how accurately you can use it. And finally, can you guess what the last one is? Begins with P.
Pronunciation.
Yes. So do you use pronunciation to convey and enhance meaning? To what extent does the accent cause strain for the listener? Aye. Examiners are trained to have an international ear and that all forms of standard English are acceptable in the IELTS speaking test, right? It's natural to have an accent, but what we're listening for is comprehensibility. To achieve a high mark, candidates must show that they can use a wide range of pronunciation features, such as rhythm, stress, and intonation, and talk at an appropriate speed with good control of individual sounds. Mm. Now, using English for everyday things like food, hobbies, the weather, and so on is essential practice for parts 1 and 2 of the test. So what about you? How often do you use English at home when chatting about things like food, hobbies, and sports? Very often. Mix. Do you switch between English and Spanish? We do in our family.
Yeah, so do we over here.
Yeah, good. Let's move on. So a bit more about these different areas. The lexical resource. Key concept here is clarity. Do you have enough words to express yourself clearly? This is judged by your ability to have enough vocab to discuss a range of topics. To use vocabulary accurately, and to be able to explain yourself when you do not have the right word. That's called like paraphrasing. Circumlocution. Common mistake is to use long words without really knowing what they mean. And then grammar range and accuracy. They need to avoid grammar mistakes, especially with their tenses. They need to use a range of grammatical structures and not just use simple sentences all the time. So for Lexis, if you want to get maybe, a 7 in Lexis, they've got to be using things like collocations accurately, more idiomatic language. Grammatical range and accuracy, to get 6 and higher, they need to be using more complex sentences with subordination. That means a main clause and a subordinate or minor clause, for example. Linked with which, who, how, that sort of thing. Yeah. So using relative clauses to build more complex sentences, that's typical of 6 and above. And examiners listen out for those as indicators that, this candidate is going to be a 6 or a 7, yeah? On to fluency and coherence, sorry. So fluency is all about speed of speech, the length of the answer, pausing correctly. Coherence means you can expand your answers and keep going, answer the question directly, adding relevant detail to give examples, connecting sentences by using tenses and connectors. So common mistakes would be very fast or long answers are not necessarily good, as there might be effects on pronunciation or lack of coherence. So candidates need to be thinking about, are they logical? What is it logical what they're saying? Not just like a salad of words. So in speaking, the main point is that you are able to express yourself clearly. Pronunciation should be easy to understand, and you should be able to make your meaning clear. So features of good pronunciation is like basic words, including the sounds within words, such as consonants and vowel sounds, linked speech sounds, correct stress within the sentences so that the students or candidates are stressing what we call the content words, or the words that carry the meaning. Common problem for Spanish speakers is that often they have a more syllable stressed delivery, and it sounds a bit horizontal and not going up and down enough, and stressing words that are important for carrying the meaning. Related to that is the correct use of intonation, like rising on questions, falling on statements, and so on. No need to have a British or an American accent. It's not going to make that much of a difference, yeah? For Spanish speakers, though, rhythm, stress, intonation, particularly important. Uh, no. I'd like you to note down in your notebook, write F and C, fluency and coherence, LR in your notebook, GRA, grammatical range and accuracy and pronunciation. Okay, now we're going to use our descriptors, band descriptors, and we're going to evaluate someone speaking. Should we have a go at that? See how well we do. So I have this ready. And let's play on this one. So this candidate is from Nepal or Nepal. So I'd like you to have a listen to him and try and figure out what band he's going to be. This is part 2 of the speaking. Right, this is where what we call the long turn, in which the candidate speaks for 1 to 2 minutes. All right. Let's test it to see if the sound's okay before we get started. Share sound, video sharing. Okay, let's go.
Let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student?
Can you just give me a thumbs up to check, confirm that you heard that okay? Anselmo is saying yes.
Yes,
You
it
hear
sounds
amazing.
Gemma, yeah, really
good.
good sound. Beatrice, excellent, thank you. Let's continue then.
Let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student?
Yes, I am both actually. I work part-time as well as a student.
What job do you do?
I'm an payroll controller. I control the payroll in a property management company.
Do you meet interesting people in your job?
Not many, but yes, sometimes I have to visit the banks and the sites, so yes, I do.
How long have you been doing this sort of work?
For a year and a half now.
Let's go on to talk about friends now. Are your friends mostly your age or different ages?
No, many different ages.
Why?
Where it ranges. It's basically because I am not from this place. I'm from back Nepal, and when I came here, I met people from my country as well as people from different places at work and at different places. So they're all over the place.
Do you usually see your friends during the week or at weekends?
It depends. I'd see them all over the week, I think. Work friends at work, after work drinks and things like that. So yeah, all throughout the week.
Okay. The last time you saw your friends, what did you do together?
We went out for a movie last Saturday. Uh, there was this interesting movie that we heard was out on due date, so we all decided to go for it, and it was pretty nice.
In what ways are your friends important to you?
Oh, they are very important to me because I hate to be lonely. I need to talk to someone every now and then because I can't just sit, not to say do nothing, but I need someone to confront and talk to. So I hold them, I give them a great importance in my life.
I'd like to move on to talk about food and cooking now. What kind of food do you like to eat?
I like Asian food quite a lot. Because it's because of its taste, its variety, and things like that.
What kind of new food would you like to try?
Um, that would be French. Pure French food, I would say.
Why?
I've heard a lot about it, but because of its taste, its originality. So, but I haven't got a chance to have the original French food as yet. So yeah, I would like to try that.
Do you like cooking?
No, that's not just my cup of tea, not at all.
Why not?
I don't know. I've been here for 3 years now, and I am a single. I live alone with my friends, but it just does not come into me. Even when I enter the kitchen, I think I go grocery shopping and I do things, but once I enter the kitchen, I just end up making some noodles and just 2 minute food, and that's it. I end up having that, but I never got into cooking. And one interesting thing, I don't know the taste of salt. So I don't know. If I cook and I call my friends over, it would be a disaster.
What was the last meal you cooked?
uh, that was tough. Just noodles again. I would say no pasta. 2 minutes food again.
We've been talking about a well-known person you like or admire, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider, first of all, famous people in your country. What kind of people become famous nowadays?
These days in my country, people who become famous are politicians, I should say, because since the time we've entered into democracy, um, they've come into a lot of media attention, and they've because of the manner the way they've been doing things for the betterment of the country, they've come into a lot of attention. And also with the improving media in my country, the stars over there, movie stars, have come into great attention.
Why do you think politicians and movie stars are famous and popular throughout the world?
Movie stars and singers undoubtedly are famous all over the world because of what they do. They entertain people and the way they do things. And politicians, I think, gain attention tend to gain attention on their take over the country, of what they're doing for the betterment of the world, for the betterment of the country, sorry, and what steps they are taking to do much better, or how they're going about it.
How would you compare the famous people today with the famous people of the past?
Big difference between the two. Back then, there wasn't so much of media attention, I could say so. As far as I know, famous people used to be role models, and they used to be good role models. But these days, famous people are role models, yet for many of them, students as well as adults. But can we call them all good models? I don't think so.
So do you really think that famous people in the past behaved better, or is it just that we don't know what they did in their private life?
It's probably a bit of both. They behaved a lot better, because since we've become more advanced these days, we can do what we feel like. These days, most celebrities and famous people take things for granted and do what they like.
What kinds of people do you think will be famous in the future?
Continuing to be movie stars and singers, and some people who really make changes to the world. I could say so. Other than that,
Do you imagine that in the future maybe people who are more worthy of fame will become famous, like scientists and writers?
up till some extent, yes, because if they are really covered, I mean they really put themselves out to the world, then yes, they could get famous. But I would still say not as much as celebrities.
Okay, let's go on and talk about celebrity culture. For example, how are famous people used in advertising?
Famous people they are used in advertising these days for a lot. We can see football stars almost all the sports stars are into advertising, including the movie stars and singers as well. The way they put themselves, because they are famous people. The marketing people think that they are going to get they are going to they will sell their product much better.
Why is that, do you think?
um because of, like I said before, because they are their role models. So people will think that, oh, he's doing that, so I can do that as well, and people will tend to follow their footsteps.
Do you think people really do that? That they will buy something because a famous person
Yes, I do.
uses it?
Sometimes advertisement makes a big difference to sales. I've been there, and I can say yes, they do quite often.
Do you think that there could be some negative effects of this culture of celebrity on young people especially?
Yes, to a great extent. There has been a lot of because people take celebrities as their role models, and the celebrities have misused their fame and power and money up till such to do things that they should not. Sometimes, yes, I think that it will create a negative effect on, especially on young people, more than adults.
All right, thank you very much, Ashish. That's the end of the speaking test.
Thank you.
So, the first 4 minutes was part one. Then from about 4 minutes, it was part three. They missed out the part in the middle where he talks for 1 to 2 minutes on his own. So this was, as it says, it was a two-way discussion. What was the difference between part one and part three in terms of the topics? Did you notice?
Part one, they were talking about himself, and in part three, they were talking about a reference topic that came from part one, right?
Yeah, well, yes, it would come from part two actually. Yeah, in part three they continue the topic from part two, but then they go into more. In part three they go into more abstract areas. So Beatrice, you're right. Part one is more personal, familiar topics. Part three is more abstract topics.
It's Cynthia, sorry.
Yeah. So that would give us an opportunity for him to show that he's more proficient in English in part three. Now, looking at the bands, what do you think he would get for fluency and coherence?
I would say 7.5.
Now, on the individual bands, you can either go for 8 or 7. So what would you go for? 7 or 8?
I think I would go with 8 because I think he spoke pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that's in
He was
fact
very-
what he got. Yes, that's
Right,
what he got.
he was very
Yeah.
fluent, and
Yeah.
he also used certain phrases that were not, it's not too common, like my cup of tea and following their footsteps and things like that. That many people don't really use those terms.
Okay, but that would be lexical resource, cup of tea, yeah. So what do you think he would get in lexical resource?
Me personally, I think I would also go with an 8.
Okay. Now you may be surprised he got a 7 there.
Yeah.
And it says he's able to talk about a variety of topics and shows ability to use idioms and collocations. But he does make a number of inappropriate vocabulary choices all over the place. That's not just my cup of tea. Someone to confront and talk to. I haven't got a chance. Which means he didn't get an 8, right? So he's not that flexible with his resource, yeah. But it doesn't quite fit into the category of uses wide vocabulary resource readily and flexibly to convey precise meaning. Okay. Now, what about grammatical range? Someone else like to comment on that one? Vera, Norman, David, Beatrice. What do you think he got for grammatical range? He used as much as correctly, for example. Okay. So would you give him a 7 or an 8?
I would give him a 7.5.
Yeah, you can't give him a 7.5 on just one of these. The averaging out comes when you combine all four. Yeah. So it's either a 7 or an 8. What would you go for? Then an 8. Yes, that's what he got. He got an 8 in grammatical range and accuracy. He uses a wide range of grammatical structures, and most sentences are error-free. Any errors do not detract at all from the meaning. Okay, and then on to pronunciation. What do you think for that? 7 or an 8?
I think I don't know. In my opinion, it would be an 8.
That's what he was given. He was given an 8, yes. I'm not sure. I might have gone for a 7 because sometimes I felt that sometimes his accent did have a bit of an effect on his intelligibility. But the examiner decided to go for an 8, so it's fine. Yeah. So here's the comments. So overall, it would be 8 fluency coherence, 7 for lexical resource, 8 for grammatical range and accuracy and pronunciation. So that would take him to a 7.5 overall, right?
That's what I gave him, 7.5.
Oh, good. So these are the comments about his performance. Notice the errors were in the pronunciation were things like formation of some sounds like bought for both and vent for went, right? So if there'd been more of those pronunciation errors, that might have taken him to a 7 in pronunciation, but probably would still have got a 7.5, right? So the 7 and lexical resource takes him down to a 7.5 in overall. All right. Now, should we do another one? Do you want to see another one? Also a two-way discussion. This guy is called Brian, and he's from China. So see if you can figure out what his band score is. Again, it's part 1 and part 3.
Now, we've been talking about a well-known person you
Yep.
like or admire, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider
Sorry, my mistake. That was part 3. Yeah, because she's making reference to part 2, and the person they've just been talking about a person he admires. Yeah, so this is the part 3 discussion.
first of all, famous people in your country.
Yep.
So in China, what kind of people become famous?
Politicians, the pop stars, and sports stars. It's similar with the other countries, I think.
Is one of those groups more popular than others?
It depends, because for like politicians, you have to know them because they appeared all the time on televisions or newspapers. But for some pop stars, like, because it's especially famous for the young people, because the young people like to follow the stars and the new trends. But for sports stars, they mainly become famous during some Olympic games or some competitions. So it really depends. Yeah.
What about in the past? Were those same people famous in the past? Politicians, sports stars, and pop stars?
I think so, because even I have talked with my parents at their age, and when they was young, they also follow some pop stars and the sports stars, and for the politicians, they change quite often. So yeah, they're also famous. Yeah.
And how about the future? Where do you think it's going to go?
I think this kind of people will remain famous in the future. This type of people, because we still have lots of new pop stars, sports stars, and some new politicians. But I think some other people will join them as well. For example, nowadays some like entrepreneurs. For example, the founder of the Facebook, he's famous for everyone. Even some not weird but strange people like the founder of the WikiLeaks. He's also popular because the things has done. So I think this kind of new raising group people will join the famous people in the future.
And do you think technology is going to be the place where many of our famous people come from in the future?
Definitely, because I think nowadays most of people use the Facebooks, the Twitters, so definitely this kind of website or the new technology will help to make people famous. And I think many people are working on it because there are special companies to make these people famous through the internet, the advertisement or the promotion. Yeah.
Now let's talk about celebrity culture. Often famous people are used in advertising.
Yep.
Can you give me some examples of that?
Well, it's quite often, we can see lots of famous people on the television. For example, like one typical example is the Michael Jordan, because he is actually, when the first time the Nike become very famous, it's because Michael Jordan, because he is the first, he's the first NBA stars, to sign a company to have the, serious commercials for specific companies. And I think that's a typical example, how the famous people to help the company successful, and also the company use his money to make the stars become more famous. So I think it's, yeah.
And that example you're talking about with Michael Jordan, he's a basketball player who is promoting a product that he was personally involved in producing. What about celebrities who endorse products for which they have no personal connection?
Yeah, it's quite often because people are profit oriented. Because we can see lots. I think for some like makeup production, we can see lots of famous female stars. They just say, okay, this one's so good, it's fantastic. Nobody know whether she's used it or not. Yeah, I think sometimes it depends on this is ethnic choice. Someone they really try it and use it and then say, okay, this one's fine, it's good. So we can rely on it, but some of them just want to get the money. So it's just do the promotion stuff without really using it or testing it.
Now, how about our young people? How might famous people or celebrities have a negative impact on our young people?
Well, as we know, some famous people is not that good. I have to say, I cannot say they're immoral, but the actions they have done is really bad. The example for the young kids or the young generation, because some of them once they become the famous, they just try to drugs, have stay in the clubs, not all day, but all the night, and I definitely yeah, young people sometimes cannot distinguish good things or the bad things. Sometimes they just follow the star's actions. So it makes, some of them just, okay, say, it's pretty cool thing, to try some drug because that star is trying it, or many stars are trying it. Or it's pretty cool, to stay with girls all the time, different girls all the time, Some my, idol, he's doing the same thing. So I think it's pretty bad negative effects on the young people.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's the end of the speaking test.
Thanks.
All right, so that was Brian. What do you think he obtained in the speaking test overall?
Like a 6.
No, like a 5.
So we're between a 5 and a 6. Pretty close, yeah. Have a look at the band descriptors again. The idea is that you have to fully fit the band descriptors. And let me tell you that it was a 6, yeah. So he achieves a band 6 in the sample part 3. So why? Well, in the fluency and coherence, we can see that he's able to give extended answers, but there's a lack of coherence as a result of hesitation and repetition at times. So he overuses certain fillers like well, like, cause, yeah. He does, however, use a reasonable range of linking words, for example, actually, as a result. He also uses grammatical constructions quite well to introduce his ideas, like by having a hobby, by doing sports. In lexical resource, his range of vocabulary is enough to discuss topics at length and shows some ability to use less common expressions, collocation, like get on very well with each other, increase money for the charity, good for the community, a developed country, psychologically, physically. Sometimes he makes the wrong word choices, but his meaning is clear and he conveys his ideas and opinions quite effectively. Like fast speed work. Relieve themselves after work. Release their body pressures. Yeah, so meaning is fairly clear, isn't it? Yeah? But he isn't always aware of register or style, and he uses the rather informal, well, rather too informal, gone or wanna.
Cause instead of because.
Cars, yeah. Then on to grammatical range. Yeah, so it's a bit too informal, isn't it? Range of structures and a mix of simple and complex forms. When using more complex structures, his control isn't always very good. They just want to get big car, big house, and that's the reason that forces them to work very hard than before. But meaning is clear enough. In terms of pronunciation, so that's what makes him the difference between a 5 and a 6, really, in grammar. He's using the more complex sentences, but it's not very accurate, right? So that's why can't be a 7, because there will be greater accuracy in the complex sentences for a 7. Pronunciation, generally clear. There's some use of stress and intonation to convey meaning, but generally his intonation is rather flat. Rhythm is also a bit mechanical. And some words are mispronounced, which sometimes leads to a loss of clarity. So whale instead of while. Lera for leisure. Okay. Beatrice's comment. Speakers not interrupted by the interviewer. I had the IELTS last Friday and that was a shock to me. You weren't expecting to be interrupted. Yes, well, that's as examiners were told to ask follow-up questions, right? Because that adds the spontaneity to it, yeah? What do you mean you have specific time to answer the questions they make, Beatrice? What do you mean by that?
Because I remember that one of the first questions that the interviewer asked, like I was interrupted in the middle of my answer.
Yeah.
She made a follow-up question, but it's like it doesn't matter if you haven't finished the sentence. It's like, and I was like, I wasn't ready to be interrupted. So that kind of, I was like confused about it, and I got a little nervous. It was at the beginning. So that was something that I noticed, that it's not like on the videos, like maybe they are keeping track of time for each question.
Yeah.
So if you make longer, if you give longer answers, you will be interrupted.
Yeah. And possibly you might be interrupted because the examiner thinks that you're kind of filling in the time with your answer rather than like developing a more coherent answer. So they want to see that how well you respond when they throw in something that makes you be more spontaneous. Also, they're aware that some students prepare for IELTS by just memorizing. Yeah. And I have to say that people from China have been quite famous for like memorizing for their IELTS, like whole stretches, yeah. So the examiners have to sort of ask them questions to check that they're not memorizing everything. Yeah. That's something worth considering. So students, yeah, preparing for IELTS, they do need to be asked lots of questions to make them to get them on their toes, right? So they're actually listening to what the examiner is saying and responding appropriately. If they want to get a higher grade anyway. If they want to get a 4 or a 5, well, that's okay. They can sort of memorize. But if they want to get 6 or higher, they need to be more spontaneous and listen to the examiner and respond appropriately. Okay, one more, yeah? This is more Latin American. It's Colombia. There's a two-way discussion again. I don't know if it's part 3. Doesn't say. We'll see anyway.
So we've been talking about a well-known person that you like or admire, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider, first of all, being in the public eye. Yeah. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being famous?
The advantages are that
first that you will get really rich, and the fame actually it helps you because you don't have to pay for a lot of stuff. They will give you free dresses and free stays in the hotels, free meals, free everything. So actually you're saving money plus the money that you're earning. And the disadvantages are that being a public eye, you lose your privacy. You will always be in the eye of the paparazzi and the people, and if someone recognizes you, they will take a picture of you, and that's the end of the relaxed evening. So I think that it will be a really big disadvantage.
Do you think if a celebrity accepts those endorsements, do you think they lose their honesty?
I don't think that they will lose their honesty, but maybe it will change them. They will have to accept the environment that they are living into right now. So if they get famous and they are not selling their soul to the devil, I don't think that they are that bad. I think that it's just human, and if they like it, well, better for them.
Can you talk about how the media reports on famous people in your country?
The reports of the media in my country, they are like having half serious news and half entertainment. So the reports are often, but not that often. They don't have like big news if Shakira gets married or not. It's like a small news, but it gets bigger with the people, not with the media, because people start to talking about the news, not the media makes it big.
Do you think more time should be spent on current events and political news?
I think so, but I think that we also need a rest from the serious stuff, and we also need entertainment. So it will be a balance, because only bad news is not good for anybody. So I think that half and half it will be better.
Why do ordinary people find the lives of celebrities so interesting?
I think because if they see somebody that successful and rich failed or getting dumped or in jail, I think that we feel better about ourselves because we think, okay, we might not be rich, but we are better than them. So I think that's why we like it so much, to see that kind of news.
So you think most people want to see that celebrity fail?
Maybe, or maybe depends. If you don't like anybody, you will like them fail. But if you really support one person, you will like them to be like really successful.
Let's talk about celebrity culture. How does the media use famous people in advertising?
In a lot of ways, because if people follows one person, for example, Justin Bieber right now in the Super Bowl, uh, the media will use it and publicists will use him as long as it takes, because if he's famous, the money return will be really high.
Do you think people want to buy a product because the celebrity endorses that?
It depends of the target, but if it's a smart target, it won't be happen like this. But if it's like a child or teenagers, they will follow anything if their leaders does it.
You mentioned Justin Bieber. Are there any negative effects of young people becoming famous?
Maybe not for the people that follows the famous people, but I think that it will be really bad for that poor guy. It's being famous at that young age, you don't know what is good and what is bad, and they will always turn bad.
Thank you very much. This is the
Okay.
end of the speaking test.
Thank you.
Take a look at your band descriptors. Tell me in the chat what you think Alexandra is overall. Yeah, I think a 4 is a bit too harsh. I think you're going to be surprised about what she actually is. You may be surprised that, according to this, I'm not sure if I fully agree. I might have given her half a point lower. I think she's definitely a 6.5, but they say she's a 7.
So we've been
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. But so in terms of fluency and coherence, she speaks quite fluently and gives extended and appropriate answers. She uses a good range of markers and linking words such as first. Actually, I think so. For example, in a lot of ways. Right? These are the sorts of things that examiners look out for. So when you're training your students, like really encourage them to use these discourse markers or linking words, yeah, because that might make the difference between a 6 and a 7 if they use them appropriately, if you're using a wide range of them. Her hesitations are not due to searching for the language to express her ideas. Instead, she pauses and hesitates when trying to make her ideas clearer. Now, Lexis, that's her main strength. She uses a wide range of language, including less common idiomatic and colloquial language, like lose your privacy, selling their soul to the devil, getting dumped. She does, however, make mistakes, and there is some inappropriate word use, like a small news. End of the relaxed evening. Right? 3 dresses. Her range, grammatical range and accuracy, is good in both simple and complex structures. She uses them flexibly. Although some of her sentences are error-free, she does make a few mistakes with articles, prepositions, subject-verb agreement, and verb tenses. If someone recognize you, if people follows, you will take them fail. It won't be happen like this. For that reason, I think I would have gone for a 6.5 because they're fairly basic, aren't they, those errors? Like people follows, yeah. Pronunciation. They say she has an accent, but her pronunciation is generally clear and easy to follow. She uses stress and intonation well to emphasize meaning. You don't have to pay for a lot of stuff. They will give you free dresses and free stays in the hotels. She has some problems with sounds, but she can still be understood. Like jung for young. Eh. So what do you think, Cynthia Bernardo? You still unconvinced by that grade?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I'm too harsh. I
possibly.
would have given her a 4, definitely.
Yeah. Well, with a 4, you would expect much less fluency. Right? It should be a lot slower for a start. She'd be
So,
struggling. She'd be struggling to find words. Right?
but I think I found that, and she was hesitating a lot. For me, it wasn't that fluid.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I could
but
probably go for a 5, but no more than that.
the difference would be like, is she hesitating to compose her ideas, or she's struggling to find language? David. You have a doubt, a query.
Yes, correct me if I'm
Sorry, you've just turned into a weird alien robot with your.
yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I can't hear you. Maybe you could put your question or comment in the chat. Yeah.
I know that there's have like a margin of.
Is there a margin of error for the
Can you hear me
examiner?
there?
Yeah. Is there a margin of error? Yes. Well, um,
Yeah, yeah. I was.
yeah. I mean, if the examiner is a point or maybe lower or higher than the rest of the exam, what happens is this that the speaking exam is often returned, and there has to be a double mark. That's what we call a jagged profile. Yeah.
What do you mean
So,
by a double mark? Is the
well,
exam presented again?
no, it just means that a different examiner listens to the recording and grades it again, right?
Okay.
And normally what happens then is that the grade for the speaking is closer to the rest of the grade for the rest of the exam. Right? Because sometimes they do very well on the listening and maybe get an 8, right? But then something really goes wrong in the speaking, they get a 5.5, right? So that triggers an alarm in the system, and that makes the center regrade the speaking exam, right? It's like a fail-safe um, against too subjective marking. Yeah. So if it's double marked, then the chances are that it's going to be more accurate. All right. Shall we move on to tips? So speaking part 1, it's more familiar topics. What can we do for that? Well, you could give them like little cards about everyday topics like eating healthy food. Sorry. Speak for 30 to 40 seconds using complete answers, and use the following phrases in your answers. And if you give them these sentence starters um, on pieces of card as well, or on your whiteboard, encourage the students to incorporate these into their talking. So this is quite good for fluency and coherence. These sort of expressions. That makes sense. So make a bunch of cards with questions on them. These familiar topics. Do you like eating healthy food? Do you use a computer every day? What other topics might they have in part 1? All sorts of things. Recent ones have been fish and fishing. How often do you eat fish? Is fishing as a sport popular in your country? Coins. How often do you like to take coins with you when you go out? I think of any other ones. What about you, Beatrice? When you had your IELTS exam, can you remember any of the topics in part one that you were asked?
Part one, she asked me, what is something that you would change about your city? I wasn't expecting that. And I was like, traffic. My
Yeah,
answer, that
yeah,
was my answer.
yeah.
And like personal topics, like if I play video games.
Video games, yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Uh-huh.
easy questions. The one that also I wasn't expecting, it was like the 2 minute talk about the topic. I got talk about something that is an equipment that is not a phone, a cell phone. And I was like blank for a minute and 30 seconds, and then I came up with a smartwatch.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, maybe some part one could also be something about technology, use of phones,
Oh
making
yeah,
phone calls,
they asked
texting.
me about computers. I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you kind of anticipated the next thing, which is about part two. Remember, part two is the long turn. So in this, candidates are given like 1 minute to read the topic, yeah, the card, make notes, and then they have to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. So encourage them to use phrases like this. I'd like to begin talking about, for me, this means basically I feel I'd like to talk about the final point I'd like to make. Right, so that shows that you can organize your speaking in different stages. And encourage them to use the PPF strategy. What do you think PPF means? What do you think the first P means? First P is past. Second P, present.
Not really. Present?
And future, PPF. So when they're preparing for this, get them to think about the topic in terms of past time, present time, and future time. All right, different time references, because that's going to help them demonstrate a knowledge of a range of more complex grammar structures. It can also be useful to get them to make a little sort of diagram on the piece of paper. They're given a piece of paper to make notes, right? So, have a little spider diagram with the topic in the middle. You've got the 1 minute. Give them practice on the organizing their ideas before they start speaking. In my experience, candidates that do actually take time to make notes usually do better than those that don't, that immediately begin speaking. You'll see that it does make a difference once they have, if they have time to get their thoughts in order. And then part 3, that's the part where they have to talk about more abstract topics. So you could get your students to work in pairs. Ask and answer the questions like this. And then show them the different functions and exponents that they could use. Such as comparing, talking about the past, speculating, giving reasons, agreeing, producing opinion. What they shouldn't do in part 3 is talk more personally about their own lives. They need to be thinking about more general responses. Any questions so far? So here's a worksheet you could use them to develop this PPF strategy. We've already explained what PPF means. Share that with you. Right. Aye. A useful thing to practice is listen, read, and think in English before the test. Talk at a steady rate, not too slow or too fast. Sometimes students think that speaking fast is a sign of fluency, but it just could mean that they trip themselves up. Make the most of the preparation minute to make notes and show them different ways of making notes with like spider diagrams, mind maps, and so on. Use natural fillers like now let me think to avoid pauses. They shouldn't be using phrases like how do you say. Don't sound flat or mechanical like a machine gun. Use stress and intonation to make your voice go up and down. Intonation, Spanish speakers can be a bit horizontal. English speakers need a more up and downy. You need to get them to do that, to sound more involved and interested. That could be the difference between a 6 and a 7, in pronunciation. Don't worry about grammar mistakes. Move on. It's not everything is grammar, Sometimes they get a bit obsessed with being accurate, super accurate in grammar, but that can reduce their fluency. There's a time to work on grammar. What else can we mention? Think about Alexandra from Colombia, how she kept going and she didn't allow a few mistakes to stop her. All right, that's relevant to this grammar. However, if you realized you made a mistake, you can correct yourself, and that also works in your favor. That's worth pointing out. It's good to practice what you can say about where you live or what you do, but candidates should avoid memorizing answers. They won't sound natural, and they won't get marks for language that sounds memorized. Give more details about each of the points you make. Explain answers by giving reasons. Why both sides of a question and give examples to support them. Yeah, sounding natural is important. Give opinions with these sentence starters. In my view, as far as I'm concerned, generally speaking, I'd say. And practice typical IELTS topics: education and health, fitness, travel, transport, leisure, communication. Yeah, these are the staples that keep coming up time and time again. They're obviously not going to talk about politics or religion. Yeah, these kind of safe type topics are usually found on IELTS, yeah? Any questions?
No, no question, but maybe something that would help the students, in my opinion and my experience, would be to have them listen to different accents also, because they are used to one, which is mostly American, and when they hear an Australian or an Indian or, well, Hindi or different accent, they just get confused or nervous because they don't understand everything. So yeah, that would be something to help them out.
That's true. That could help them make them feel less nervous in the speaking exam as well, yeah. Got a little activity to show you. It's from the Cambridge materials. I'll show you how I've adopted. If you teach exams online, you might find this useful. So it's all for part 2 speaking. What is part 2? Can you remember? Is it where they're
The monologue, no?
It's the monologue, yes. It's what we call the long turn. Part 2 is the long turn. So that's where they got to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. Yeah, without interruptions. And some of them find that difficult because they're just not used to speaking for that length of time. The activity is designed to raise students' awareness of the benefits of thinking about and planning their answers. So, divide your class into pairs, first of all. Then, give them a set of cards. So, I've got some cards on my Figma Fig Jam. Tell them to put the cards face down between them. In pairs, each student picks up a card and tells the other the topic written on it. He or she then talks about the topic for 30 seconds, timed by her partner. The listening student should then ask the speaker a question about what has been said. Both partners have a turn. Explain that in the speaking test, candidates have 1 minute to think about their answer, make any notes they want. Time the students 1 minute to do this now, using the same topic card. Okay, so first time is 30 seconds. Then they use the same topic and write notes for a minute. And then repeat. So I think it's to make them aware of the importance of planning their answer for part 2. So perhaps I could put you into breakout rooms and you could try this activity. I've got just be reading and studying the instructions while I get this ready. So I put the topics on this fig jam. Put you into breakout rooms. How many are there of us? So I'll have Anselmo together, Bernardo, Claudia, Cynthia, and David. Emma, Josephina. I'll put 3 people in each room so that maybe one person could be an observer. How about that? And then you can give them feedback on how well they did. So in room 1, Kenya, I'll have you as the observer, please. Patricia, and room 2, you can observe Claudia and Bernardo. Emma, could you observe David and Cynthia?
Yes.
Josefina, can you help Claudia in room 2 observe Josefina and Bernard? Now, let me just put your names on this. So, first one is on Anselmo and Beatrice. Slide 2. Who did we say? Bernardo and Claudia? Yeah. And slide 3. Cynthia and David with Hammer observing. Okay, can someone please explain what the instructions are? Having read the instructions. Let's go over them again. So, in pairs, each student in turn picks up a card and tells the other the topic written on it. So, Bernardo might say, pick up a card like my favorite film or book, and then he tells Claudia the topic. So she then talks about the topic for 30 seconds, timed by Bernardo, right, with your cell phone.
Got it.
The listening student, that is Bernardo, should then ask Claudia a question at the end related to the topic, right? Both partners have a turn, so then you swap.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you have 1 minute to think about your answer and make any notes you want. So time your preparation, 1 minute preparation time, but you use the same topic card, right? And then I'm going to put you into new pairs. And then you're going to have to speak for 1 minute timed by your new partner. Their partner should then ask the speaker a question about what has been said. So the aim is that we compare the first 30-second and the second 60-second time. Yeah. Which was more difficult? Was it more difficult to speak spontaneously for 30 seconds, or was it easier for the 1 minute preparation to then talk about for 60 seconds? All right, let's try it anyway. Give you the link to the Big Jam. Find your and I'll put you into breakout rooms for 6 minutes. Should be enough. Please go to the breakout rooms. So, not too much time left. So, that was just an opportunity to show you one of these Cambridge designed like lessons, uh, and it's useful to get them to answer these follow-up questions um, to make them aware of the strategies that they can use, right? So questions would be, how was your performance different between the first, the 30-second and the second 60-second time you spoke about each topic, which was more difficult? What can you do in the minute preparation time? So the answer could be that concentrate on finding a real personal experience to talk about. Write down key ideas of vocabulary. How can you improve your performance in this part of the exam? Well, practice using cards and speak for a minute with a partner in spare moments. Practice preparing and brainstorming ideas on the topic for a minute. Record yourself speaking, that's always useful. And play back the recording, reflecting on what you could improve. Now, we've got quick Kahoot. Just to remind you of the parts of the speaking exam. How quickly we can do this. So I don't keep you too late. Let's do it. Uh, Complete IELTS speaking test is how long? Easy enough. Yeah, 11 to 14. Yeah, one examiner. Yeah, one examiner and two candidates would be life skills. It's a version of IELTS that's used for often the partners of people who are actually taking the IELTS exam. Or Cambridge exams. Oh no, that's two examiners and two candidates, isn't it? With Cambridge. How many parts in the speaking test? Yeah, 3. Yeah, 45 minutes. Good idea to have eye contact. Yeah. Some might find it a bit uncomfortable, but yes, it's better because it helps the interaction. Simple topics, part 1. Yes. Which wouldn't be included. Yeah, they don't involve politics. Two minutes, yeah. The examiner says 1 to 2 minutes, but it's expected that you speak for 2 minutes. And then they cut you off at 2 minutes. How much preparation time does the candidate have? 1 minute. How many is part 3? 4 to 5 minutes. Yeah, they're more abstract, and this is where the examiners sort of try and detect whether it's going to be the candidate's going to get a higher grade. Yeah, so they need to use more complex abstract language. When will the candidate be given his or her results? Yeah, I'm going to skip that one because I think it's changed. For computer delivered IELTS, it's faster now. Used to be 2 weeks, but I think it's faster. It's perfectly normal for examiners to interrupt test takers mid-sentence to ask additional questions. Beatrice will answer yes. The answer is true. It's okay to add extra detail to a story which may or may not have happened. True, the examiners are interested in the language that you produce, not whether it's true or not. So you can fabricate if you wish, just as long as the language sounds good. It's a good idea to bring up to-date slang to impress the examiner. False, yes, because it's considered too informal. Yes, examiners have to be encouraging to get students to do well. Prompt is the key word. Is indeed. Penultimate question. Natural. True, yes, that's what Alexandra did, the Colombian girl. Well done, Bear. Congratulations, Sin, and the rest of you. So, next week, you'll be doing self-study online regarding speaking, and Monday 24th is summary and closure. Now, they haven't really indicated what they want us to do. So I guess that means we can do whatever we want in the last sesh. So I've prepared a Google form here. So it's like a survey. So tell me, what would you like to do next week? Put your on the 24th. Express your preferences on the Google form. I think we could probably cover 2 papers in 2 hours for additional. Maybe we could do one productive and one receptive. See what preferences are. Ah, people seem to prefer reading and writing. Ah, interesting. All right. Well, I'll try and find some activities then that we can use to prepare our students in those areas. Great. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you on the 24th for our final session together.
Thank you.
Gracias y buenas noches.
Thank you. See you next
Bye.
Bye.
2 weeks.
Thank you. See you
Thank
next
you. See you.
Nice
Bye.
afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice night.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Have a nice
Dreams.
Likewise. Thank you.